One person has died and some 30 passengers have been injured in a train crash in the Netherlands. Finland becomes NATO's 31st member, completing the fastest succession process in the organisation's history.
Ukraine denies claims by the Russian mercenary group Wagner that it's taken control of the besieged eastern city of Bakhmut.
One person has died and some 30 passengers have been injured, many of them seriously, after a train partially derailed in the Netherlands in the early hours of Tuesday morning. One train carriage landed in a field following the accident, which happened at around 3:30 in the morning in the town of Voorschoten near The Hague. Railway authorities say the presence of a small construction crane on the tracks was the likely cause of the crash. A new flagpole awaits the Finnish flag at NATO headquarters in Brussels. When the Nordic country becomes the military alliance's 31st member today, it will complete the fastest succession process in the organisation's history. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has welcomed the new arrival.
It will be a good day for Finland's security, for Nordic security and for NATO as a whole. Sweden will also be safer as a result.
Although weekend elections mean Finland looks to have lost the Prime Minister who championed NATO membership, Sanna Marin, the accession has cross-party support. Russia's invasion of Ukraine triggered applications from Finland and Sweden. Turkey delayed the process, complaining that Finland was supporting terrorists, and Ankara is still blocking Sweden's application on similar grounds. NATO sees Finland's membership as an asset. Unlike most members of the alliance, Finland didn't cut defence spending after the Cold War and has a large, well-trained army. Russia has warned it will bolster its own forces along the Finnish border should NATO troops be deployed there.
Residents of the besieged Ukrainian city of Bakhmut loading some of their belongings onto the back of an armoured vehicle. They're being helped by Ukrainian soldiers to leave their homes for a place of safety elsewhere in the country. A ghost town, the eastern city was once home to some 70,000 people, but now tanks and armoured vehicles patrol the streets. A spokesperson for Ukraine's Eastern Command has denied Russian claims that Bakhmut has been taken. The fight for the city has become the longest and bloodiest battle of Russia's assault on Ukraine. Overnight, the head of the private mercenary group Wagner claimed it had raised a Russian flag over an administrative building in Bakhmut. He even posted a night vision video of the act, but the location could not be identified. In his nightly address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Donetsk region, which includes Bakhmut, is especially hot. He's due to visit Poland on Wednesday for talks with his Polish counterpart. Warsaw has already delivered the first batch of Soviet-era MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia claims to have killed up to 285 Ukrainian troops in its Donetsk advance and destroyed Ukrainian military hardware.
The first Polish MiG-29 fighter jets have arrived in Ukraine, Warsaw confirmed on Monday, without specifying exactly how many aircraft have been sent. Last month, Poland and Slovakia became the first Western countries to announce the shipment of more than 40 MiG fighters to Ukraine, thereby crossing what was until then a red line in sending military equipment to the country. The announcement comes ahead of Ukrainian President Zelensky's visit to Warsaw on Wednesday for his first official trip to Poland since the war began. Meanwhile, German Vice-Chancellor Robert Habeck arrived in Kyiv for an unannounced visit.
dass die Ukraine ein klares Zeichen kriegt, dass wir daran glauben, dass sie siegreich sein wird, dass sie wieder aufgebaut wird, dass es ein Interesse von Europa gibt, nicht nur in der Not zu unterstützen, sondern dass die Ukraine auch ein wirtschaftlich starker Partner in der Zukunft sein wird.
Harbeck, who also serves as economy minister, was accompanied by a small business delegation. The main purpose of this trip is to discuss the reconstruction of the country and cooperation in the energy sector.
A strong police presence outside Trump Tower ahead of former US President Donald Trump's appearance in court. He arrived in New York on Monday afternoon, spending the night in his private suite, preparing with his lawyers for today's proceedings. Trump is expected to deny wrongdoing when indicted for his alleged role in hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels. He's the first US president in history to face a criminal case. There's tight security in New York as the city braces for potential street protests by both his supporters and detractors. The New York Police Department is on high alert ahead of the arraignment, ordering its 36,000 officers to be in uniform and ready to deploy.
Our message is clear and simple. Control yourselves. New York City is our home, not a playground for your misplaced anger. We are the safest large city in America because we respect the rule of law in New York City.
The exact charges to be levelled against Trump are unknown, but his lawyers have said he will plead not guilty. The payment to Stormy Daniels was not illegal, but he allegedly recorded it as a business expense. Falsifying business records is illegal in New York. The former president is expected to return to his Florida home after the court releases him on bail.
These are the scenes of devastation across parts of the US's south and Midwest following Friday's deadly tornadoes. And now, as residents sift through the wreckage of their homes, forecasters are warning of more severe weather in the days ahead. The fierce storms that spawned the tornadoes, killing at least 32 people, were caused by a combination of low pressure and strong winds. Forecasters say those same conditions are now set to return. Hundreds of firefighters have been battling to control a massive fire that burned through a popular clothing market in the Bangladesh capital, Dhaka. The Banga Bazaar market is well known as a source of cut-price Western fashion brands, and although no casualties have so far been reported, the blaze has left many shop owners devastated by the loss of their livelihoods. Fires are common in commercial zones in Bangladesh, with lax monitoring and a lack of fire safety arrangements often to blame.
The first stamps featuring the profile of Britain's King Charles III rolling off the printing press. Officially, they're due to go on sale at post offices and retailers from today. But, like Charles, who had to wait a long time before succeeding Queen Elizabeth II on the throne, it may be a while before you receive a letter with one on it. Stockists will not be selling them until all the stamps featuring his mother's image have been used up. The format for the stamp is the same as the first one, featuring Queen Victoria in 1840, except that Charles is not seen wearing a crown.
Following calls by the European Commission to reassess EU diplomatic and economic ties with China, all eyes are now on Ursula von der Leyen's joint trip with the French president to Beijing, where the stakes could not be higher. In 2022, China was the third largest partner for EU goods exports and the largest partner for the bloc's imports of goods, an important indicator of where relations between the two really lie. For some experts, this trip will be exploited by Chinese President Xi Jinping.
We have the biggest players, such as Germany or France, and the business circles in these two countries have very vast, really vast interests in terms of returning to business as usual. And with Macron, this business delegation is definitely a signal towards Beijing that economic cooperation is still very high on the agenda in Paris. But also, at the level of EU as a whole, and this was very visible in von der Leyen's speech, Europe is not about decoupling, this American-style decoupling.
Von der Leyen has described it as de-risking rather than decoupling. But Bakulska says this won't be easy.
But this will be very, very difficult in practice, given the scope of Xi Jinping's revisionism, the way how economy has been politicized in the recent decade, and also given his ambitions, create this dependency to also shield China from external shock.
Macron wants to deter China from getting even closer to Russia. But some analysts warn that there's not much room to maneuver given that the nature of relations between Beijing and Moscow is highly strategic. What the French president and his European Commission counterpart can do is warn China of possible consequences in case of further military support to Russia.
President Macron, of course, has the legitimacy to ask and raise the issue to China for two reasons. First, France is, of course, a nuclear weapon state. And second, France, unlike the US and the UK, is not part of any nuclear sharing agreement as these two countries are as part of NATO. France, compared to China, is lightweight today. Even though France is a permanent member of the Security Council, the relationship is very asymmetric, and there is little that Macron can convince Xi Jinping of. It's good to try. It's good, of course, to maintain channel of communication open, but we need to be very realistic in our expectation and to keep very limited expectation.
At the same time, both experts agree that sensitive technologies are key to this relationship. But this doesn't mean that China has the upper hand, as China is still an export powerhouse and is very much dependent on maintaining these exports and having access to European markets.